Everyone to another episode of the Rocket MSP Podcast. I'm Steve Taylor, your host. I'm joined today by Eric Taylor. Eric, how you doing, sir?
Good, bud. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. So your new company is Barricade Cyber Solutions?
That's correct.
I got it right. Yeah.
Good job.
All right. Um, I know that you and a group of our, I'll say, friends. I consider you all friends. A small group of us. You're very active in this group, and then you're starting to become more active in some other, maybe Reddit forums and Slack teams and things like that, where you're just really starting to share some security knowledge.
hmm
And I really appreciate it because I'm learning things, um, things that I probably should know, but I've just never taken the time to look into it. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. And that's really why
Um,
I formed the company. It's one to get away from the general IT aspect of things and really show that we
hmm,
are, a cybersecurity firm. Um, and the mission is to educate companies to be more secure. So,
okay,
using platforms like this and other mediums like you talked about is definitely the one of the primary missions.
very good. Now I know that you said you had something like really important to show me, and I thought, well, you're doing all this security stuff, so let's do it with an audience. It's not something super bad, is it? Like you didn't
I
find my
kept it tame.
OnlyFans account.
No, I haven't found that, but thanks for letting me know that. I'll try to find that in a minute.
Well, well, well. I remember we had a discussion a while back, and I don't really remember how that discussion went. Can you refresh my memory?
So I was asking you, about your YouTube channel here, and I was asking, what do you classify this YouTube stream as? You're like, oh, it's a podcast. I was
It
like,
is. It's a podcast.
but isn't it a vlog because it's video?
Well, I mean, I could see why you think that, but I think thanks to people like Joe Rogan and other like huge channels on YouTube, they have successfully turned something that used to just be audio into something that's audio and video. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Obviously, I don't have the type of budget that some of these larger productions have, but
Yeah.
that's the goal. So yeah, podcast.
Okay. So did you remember at one time you originally set up a podcast before using YouTube?
Yeah. I was running Podbean, and I don't know, it just seemed like a lot of work to manage the two, and then like not a whole lot of people were using it, so I just kind of like stopped. If that
You
makes
just
sense.
you just kind of stopped using it and migrated to something else?
I didn't really migrate to. I just stopped doing the podcast thing for a while.
See, this is kind of what we want to talk about today. Subdomains and how companies like ours take what we in the cybersecurity. This is the low lying fruit. You got the big level stuff like the S3 buckets you got in Google accounts and VMs and all this other stuff that you could take over. But these subdomains, like your podcast I'm about to show you, can be taken over. So if you can,
Now hold on.
oh, here we go.
You said my subdomain can be taken over.
hmm
I don't have to worry about that actually, Eric. So I use Cloudflare, and Cloudflare's, they're already super secure, and there's a little button down at the bottom of the DNS section. I turned on DNS sec, so it adds all this extra like security to my DNS. So I'm good. You can't do anything.
Okay. So Cloudflare is an intermediary. So they will either be your primary DNS resolver
Mm,
or they will be a mediary between your resolver and the end destination. So we'll dive it. So in your specific situation, you have Cloudflare as your primary DNS resolver. So
okay.
all of your DNS records are in Cloudflare,
Mm,
but you're pointing them to external sources, right?
okay. I'm picking up what
You
you're
follow me
putting
so
down.
far? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can bring up a website of podcast.rocketmsp.io, and you'll show what
Yeah,
I've been able to see what I was able to do.
let me share my screen here. Oh, there's so many to choose from.
The whole world waits.
This isn't good.
So
This isn't good, Eric.
no,
I don't understand. So if I look at my DNS, like you see, look, I've got DNSSEC, Eric. I don't understand what the problem is.
that will help secure the communication coming from Cloudflare to your external source. That doesn't protect your DNS itself.
So what you're saying is,
It's two different things.
so okay.
So remember when regular websites were being built, you just had un-SSL encrypted traffic, and then you had SSL. That's kind of what this is, but it's forcing everything to be an SSL encrypted from Cloudflare to your end destination. In this case, it is Podbean. Because you still had in your DNS records of podcast.rocketmsp.io going to Cloudbean, or Podbean, sorry, I was able to take that over.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, Eric. So I ended up earlier this week signing back up for Podbean. I reactivated that account. My podcast, I've updated it. I've uploaded new episodes. So if you go to like Spotify and Pandora, Apple, whatever your podcast medium is, for the most part, the Rocket MSP podcast should be up there. And it should have, like, if I come here and I go to my podcast dashboard, like it has episodes. You see this one here with Jason Cohen, it's already had views. This one here just got uploaded this morning, so I'm not expecting anything there yet. But what you're telling me is that subdomain, even though my Podbean account is set up to use that subdomain, because you took it over in that interim where I just didn't care about the podcast. You took it, you stole it from me.
Yes, I did. So if you wanted to take a note right there, you have rocketmsp.podbean.com, which is very goofy to do. But if you want to stop your sharing of your screen, I'll share mine and kind of go through exactly how I did this.
Go for it. Now, hold on. Why is that goofy to do? RocketMSP.podbean.com.
Because you set up a different record for DNS versus taking over what you what you already had.
That's because that's what their instructions were.
Probably because the existing one was already being used by me when I did the domain takeover. So, yep, we now have a podcast as Rocket MSP. Hooray!
Oh, this is a nightmare.
No worries. I mean, we are certified ethical hackers. We will work with you, of course, to make sure we do a transition and get these things cleaned up.
Do I have to pay ransom?
No.
Are you an evil hacker?
No.
Have I just been hacked?
No. This is just a subdomain takeover. This is just taking over what was previously allowed to be taken over that you left as a stale record.
Okay.
This is not a hack, even though a lot of people would like to call that. We are leveraging technology that's currently available to us by setting up an account with the other providers, in this case, Podbean, to set up an account and take over what was pointed already. So we'll get into this a little bit later, but when you start looking into your DNS records for your company, as you can see right here, this is just one of the sites that we end up using. We can see you got board.rocketmsp.io, you got podcast, you got some SNI, which is Cloudflare, things of that nature. So at the very bottom, you got the staging3.rocketmsp.io that looked like it was active using Let's Encrypt till the middle of last year, but you may not be using it anymore. So when we're looking and we're pulling DNS records based off of SSL SSL certs, which is what this site does, which I'll give a link toward in the bottom, you'll start seeing all these other certificates that are being used. How often are they getting regenerates against this database? So we typically try to look at the very top stuff that's there, and your podcast was there.
Now,
So
I've got to say, this is a very, very comprehensive DNS tool that you're using. I have, if I were to look in my bookmarks here, I have a section called DNS, and in there I've got 2, 4, 6, 8. I've got 9 DNS websites in here just for poking around because what do they always say? It's always DNS, right?
mhm.
So I use things like DNS Trails, which got rebranded to Security Trails. There's a dig website. There's a domain dossier, Demarkian. So I've got a bunch of these, and I don't think any of them give me like the C names.
Correct. So we'll go through a little bit of that. There's two tools that I typically use when I'm doing what's called ONISing and doing our recon for subdomain takeovers and seeing, not just even subdomain takeovers, but try to see what technologies a company is using when we're getting ready to engage on a penetration test or a domain takeovers or anything of that
Mm.
nature, right? So, keeping in mind that the podcast.rocketmsp.io, resolves to, if you look at that very last line there,
Yeah.
it is not rocketmsp.podbean.io or .com. It's the other subdomain. So because you still have that subdomain of podcast.rocketmsp.io pointing to that subdomain of Podbean, we were able to take it over. Now
And
Podbean,
even though I went in and like resubscribed to Podbean, you still somehow own it.
yep,
If I come in here and I'm gonna, let's see here, exit full screen because I was trying to read everything you were showing me. If I come in here and I look in the distribution podcast website, there was like several steps I had to go through, and now I'm able to come in here and podcast.rocketmsp.io, and the domain name's already taken. You've stolen it.
hmm
You're a bad,
but can
bad
you
man,
really
Eric.
can you really steal anything that you left open?
So what you're saying is, this is like the equivalent of me dropping a 20 in the parking lot and somebody else
Mhm.
picking it up.
Yeah. But
Okay.
this is the kind of argument that we have with a lot of MSPs and stuff where they say that we steal things from people. We're
Hmm.
hacking them. You know, there is a fine line in what we're doing. Um, you dropping a 20 in the parking lot and me picking it up is this, versus you leaving your front door unlocked
Mm.
and the door wide open and somebody coming in and breaking it in or coming in and stealing your stuff. There's still
Got it.
that barrier. It's all about intent. What was the intent of this action?
Got it.
And if you look at it, it says friendly subdomain takeover, and we're doing a
Yeah.
disclosure to you and saying, look, this is what we're doing, and I know I could do this because you and I known each other for a long time. So I know you would take this as the goofiness that it is that I'm able to do to you, right?
And full
So,
disclosure, guys, I've already known about this for like a month, and obviously I'm over dramatizing all of this, but I want you guys to see like how stupid easy this was. So I thought you would have put up a few more episodes by now, Eric. Like I've literally just been running your podcast up on my subdomain for I think it's been well over a month.
wow.
So enjoy.
Well, yeah. We've it's just been kind of something to mess with, and I didn't want to, and this really goes back to the intent part, right? it's it's carefree. It's, well, I mean, I wouldn't say carefree is not the right one, but it's designed to be playful because we know each other. It's
Mm,
designed to be non-malice intent. Granted, could I take it a completely different way? Absolutely. I
mm-hmm.
could have a squirrel attack like anybody who knows me would, and put all kinds of goofy stuff up there and show bad intent. I could have, you know, just done adult material, sounds of adult materials tied to your domain. I could have, registered an email service from that domain, impersonated you, and start emailing out, destroying your domain reputation. There's a
So
lot that
it
can be
didn't even
done.
necessarily have to be. Well, in this case, it had to be a podcast because that
Yes.
subdomain's pointing to Podbean.
Hmm.
But if this was worse, like for example, if I had something pointing to like Active Campaign or
A
Mailchimp or one of
chimp.
those
Yep.
type of services, and oh, okay, that's nice. So had I done something like that, this could have been much worse for me. Now, Aaron, we have our first nice comment, Eric. This is 101 stuff. Are we going to cover anything from the last decade? So, maybe we'll see what else Eric wants to provide to us. But I will say this: yes, it's 101 stuff, Aaron. But what what you need to realize is there are a lot of MSPs that will set things up for their clients because their clients ask, and then the client never lets them know, hey, we stopped using XYZ service, we no longer need this DNS entry, because they don't know any better. They're that's what they pay us for, right? So why aren't we doing cybersecurity hygiene? Why aren't we going through the DNS? How often we need to do this, like once a day? Or
No, not that extreme. And we at least you need to be doing this once a year. I personally recommend once a quarter if you can be able to tolerate it. But yeah,
Mhm.
definitely at least once a year, going through and just auditing all your stuff. You really should be deleting the services as you remove them. And to push back on Aaron a little bit, you know, we s- it's been for how many years now that people will call and say, "Hey, your social security number is going to be, suspended if you don't go get a bunch of Apple or Target gift cards and send them over." We still have people doing that. So while yes,
Yeah.
Aaron, you may be at a higher caliber than most people, and hats off to you, but I can tell you so many times this is basic stuff that we come across every single day, every day.
and and it's not just limited to me. Like,
Mm.
I'm not the only dummy that got rid of Podbean and then you know didn't remove the DNS record.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a case coming up. I'll show you here in a minute for HubSpot. There's a ton of stuff that of course, of NDAs, but I will tell you, RMM providers that we are actively bug testing and hacking on are even susceptible to this. Of course, with NDAs, I can't disclose who they are, but I can tell you they are the biggest players.
Now, let's be honest. Like, this type of stuff, okay, it this says those are just taking over orphan AOC name destinations. They're not really subdomains.
They are subdomains. They are a record subdomain record. They are a subdomain DNS record.
Yeah, so
They
so
may
I
be
think
orphaned, and he's correct that it is an orphaned subdomain record.
yeah, I think the thing people will forget is it doesn't matter if it's a C name, a record, whatever. Like, if it is something dot yourdomain dot com, it's a subdomain.
Hmm.
So unless Mark, you're telling me um, that you have a different definition for a subdomain, I'm all ears. Maybe there's something that we don't know. But I think Eric, you have some other stuff that you wanted to show.
Yeah, sure. So this is where I was just going to point out where I took over that subdomain, registered it with Podbean, right?
Right.
Um, so we'll talk. So to preference what I'm getting ready to show, this was an attempt of a subdomain takeover against an RMM. I can disclose this because this was not an actual takeover, but we'll talk about Kaseya. They
Okay.
do have a what's called a VDP, a vulnerability disclosure program, just like other RMMs. Um, so when we start looking into these guys, just being bored, seeing what I can do. Looks like things got a little squirrely there. So there is one that's in here. It looks like I'm missing a slide for some reason. Sorry about that. So one of the things, the MX records that looked really interesting that I wanted to take a look at was, of course, Dev one. What does that go to? What does Powered Services go to? And what does MSP go to? So when I start looking, just on your records, this thing goes to a pagesecure.co, which is a landing page company. Now, when I try to actually actively take that subdomain over in Instapage, it will tell me that it is currently registered. So this is where what Mark was kind of hinting at. It is a stale record, but it is still registered against Instapage. So while it is still pointing there, it's still a item that is not able to be leveraged for a subdomain takeover. It's still a stale page. So
Okay. Now, so with this cybersecurity hygiene stuff, what should we have? What should we be doing to set this up correctly? Besides going through and cleaning it up, what should we? Is there something that we could be doing even better or more differently than the way that we're currently doing things with the the Podbean C names and so on and so forth?
well, I mean, just going back to making sure you clean up your DNS records, right? Anything that you're not leveraging, you're not using, you need to clean those things up. You need to get rid of those legacy subdomain takeovers, um, and being able to make sure that these type of low-lying fruit things are not laying around. It
Okay.
also would be good. So one of the parts that always go back and forth on is it is up to the vendor that you're using as well, right? So um, the subdomains that we were taking over for HubSpot, it actually made you put in um, CNAME and text records in your DNS to verify that you're the owner of that domain. Things
Yes.
like Instapage, things like Podbean are not doing that. They just do a quick check. Hey, is that subdomain pointing to us? Great, let's move on.
Well, and that's not really something that we can control though as the MSP.
Nope, but you should be vetting, you know, how well are they taking security? If it was really easy to set some of the stuff up, you may want to push back on that.
Okay. Now, um, just going back, I just want to clarify that yes, for some of the people watching, what you've shown me so far, some people already know this. Okay, and let's
Yeah.
be honest, like taking over a subdomain, what you've done is really not that difficult. It's not hacking. It's not. You went and spent some money on a podcast and that was that, right? So
To be fair,
the
before you
the
go on, a lot of these services like Instapage doesn't even require you to be charged.
interesting. So with that said, though, I guess the point I'm trying to make is just because just because this was like stupid easy for you to do doesn't mean it's any less of a thing that MSPs should be looking into, because our job as MSPs is to keep our clients secure, their data secure, their domain secure. You, and we should even be considering ourselves as kind of like the cyber reputation management in some ways. Like, obviously, we don't care about their reviews and stuff online in that sense of reputation management, but we should be worried about, you know, is their domain getting, blacklisted on certain lists because they've just got garbage going out? What subdomain is it coming from? Is it something we're using, or is it something somebody else is using because reasons? Um, so yeah, we just definitely need to be looking at our client DNS records and our own DNS records every 3 to 6 months, and making sure that they don't have any stale records, or else this kind of stupid, and it's, again, it's not a hack, it's just an annoyance.
It is.
But do you want to deal with an annoyance? Do you want to look like an idiot in front of your client? Just go out there and clean up the DNS records.
To be fair, there is a potential for hacking purposes. All right. A lot of people will use AWS and Azure services,
Mm-hmm.
for VMs and things of that nature. There are potential ways when you're going after a company's cloud infrastructure to be able to potentially use those subdomains to authenticate yourself, and take over potential VMs and um, S3 buckets, things of that nature. There's hacking courses, pen testing courses completely around that. So while a lot of this stuff is quote unquote rudimentary, it could be a gateway to some pretty bad stuff.
Okay. Um, is there something else that you would like to show us?
Um, so we can talk about I got the next slides up here where we were going to take over a HubSpot domain. And this is kind of where, again, the subdomain really played a key role in this in the HubSpot, where we could not mimic that same subdomain that HubSpot was using when we were trying to set things up at first. Um, but yeah, it's these HubSpot is one of those companies that really do a really good job of verifying their subdomains. If I'm trying to authenticate myself as this company using that subdomain, it's just they're not able to. It's not able to be done. So being able to verify these things, going through and doing your own record maintenance. This really goes back to a lot of documentation that we talk about a lot, that a lot of MSPs, IT professionals do not have any sort of documentation, whether it's Excel spreadsheet or anything about what is in their organization, what is, you know, you should be looking at everything publicly accessible around any and all of your domains, right? So,
Okay. Um, are there any other, basic security hygiene stuff that we MSPs should be doing to keep not only our clients' stuff safe, but our own stuff safe?
well, yeah, I mean, that could be a whole different webcast altogether where we can really dive into all that stuff, right? So, um, this is definitely a little bit out of scope of this one, but the whole make sure you got 2FA and all that. I mean, we can really dive into a lot of that. I really think that may be a little bit out of the scope, at least for this. I really want to have people focus on at least this topic and trying to get their domains taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
and removing these stale records. This could be a 5-minute job for some people. This could be a couple hour job of going through. It just depends on what's being currently routed with each of their domains.
Okay. Now, earlier you mentioned a VDP program.
Yep, VDP, which is called a Vulnerability Disclosure Program.
Okay. So, what exactly is that?
So it's a way that a certified ethical hacker, a hacker in general, wants to properly disclose a vulnerability to a company. Um,
So, so can I just like, me, somebody that is not a certified ethical hacker, I've never done this a day in my life, can I just go out and start taking over subdomains and what collect sweet checks or something, or how's this
most
work?
most VDP programs do not have a payout program like a bug bounty program by any means. Um, most
So
of them.
then why do hackers do anything with them?
So a lot of the hackers will be on what's called HackerOne or BugCrowd or some of these other platforms that will offer those payouts. Um, to be completely, transparent, I do a lot of these on the stack of tools that we use because if I'm going to be using said product for either internal or for my clients, I want to make darn sure that's as secure as possible. So we go through these to make sure that our vendors are, you know, doing their best practice for cybersecurity.
Got it. So basically, what I think I just heard, and I'm going to just guess at some products. I mean, you're saying that the IT glues and Kaseya's and ConnectWises, whatever tools you're using in your infrastructure to provide service to your clients, you are actively
Hacking them.
checking to see if the doors are locked.
Hmm.
Okay, and doesn't that get you in trouble?
No, because we do proper disclosure. Now, let's say I took one of those tools and I just went to Reddit or LinkedIn or whatever and be like, hey, guess what new vulnerability I just found? And describe it in full detail how to exploit it. Yeah, that is criminal. I am actively posting out in quote unquote 0 day. I'm
Hmm.
not letting the vendor do their own assessment to verify that it is a potential problem. I'm not giving them time to do any sort of remediation or anything. I'm just finding stuff and posting it. And that's where the intent comes in. When you do things like that, it is a malice intent. Like
Got it.
because it's YouTube, I guess I could say, damn the consequences. All right. So
Hmm. All right. So is this something that you actually charge money for, like this
mhm.
certified ethical hacking stuff?
So pen testing, yes.
Hmm.
Let's take a step back. So the CEA, Certified Ethical Hacker, and a lot of the courses that we're starting to go through with the SANS program, those are certifications to help prove to companies that we know what we're doing, at least on paper, and that we are going to be honorable in our intentions. So um, but yes, there are what's called blue team and red team, and I know people laugh at it, but there's even things called purple teaming engagements. The blue teaming is where you are, working with the IT and you're doing, you know, engagements of recon, atomic red teaming, engagements, things of that nature to test and educate the internal IT folks. You're working hand in hand with them during an engagement. Um, a red team is an external test. So typically the IT folks do not know we are even involved, whether it's, a physical or, technological, for websites or, cloud infrastructure or whatever. Um, and then those are the quote unquote get out of jail free cards that we carry around when we're doing those physical. Because if We always, of course, try to lie our way out to see if we can, break in, get sensitive information, and successfully leave. But in case it starts hitting the fan, like, whoa, 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 here's a number that you need to call. I'm actually supposed to be here, and they do that. So, and the purple teaming is where you do both sides of the fence at one time. So, but yes, those are services that we do.
Okay. Um, do you work mainly with like MSP channel vendors, other MSPs? Do you go directly to like what would be like one of your MSP client type companies, like the law firms or hospitals or whatever?
So a lot of the things that we get engaged in, at least from an MSP standpoint, is really two-sided. So the and it's really always a delicate conversation at first, right? They they want to be more secure, but they don't want someone to run them over or drive the bus over them or whatever the analogy you want to use. So, a lot of MSPs will come to us and say, "Hey, how do we secure our house so that way we can secure our clients?" Keeping that barrier between them and their clients that we can't see, so to speak. Um, but most of our stuff these days are ransomware remediation, where the MSPs are coming to us and saying, "Hey, you know, we messed up somehow. You know, our client got hit with ransomware. We need help." And it could be
Hmm.
as little as, "Hey, we want you to talk to the hackers and negotiate the Bitcoin or Monero coin payment. Do the proof of concept they can do that and decrypt the servers," to full on forensics of, how in the world did they get in? And granted, most of the ransomware people now have their true vectors of RDP or email or whatever the case is. Um, but there are the unknowns. Did they really come in by RDP or whatever? So, they do
Hmm.
want that forensics for maybe a compliancy or just a personal self-satisfaction aspect.
Okay. Um, is there anything else that you have that you wanted to go over or discuss?
Yeah, so I'm going to advance through a couple slides here, um, right here toward the end. So, like we were saying before, um, definitely check your DNS records.
Mm-hmm.
Log into your DNS servers, go through all those things. Um, and start your cleanup process. Like I said, you definitely want to fully delete the accounts on your legacy servers. Your Podbeans, your Mailchimps, all those. Get rid of those accounts altogether. Fully get them deleted and delete them from your domain, your DNS records. Um, I got two sites there listed. You can use public sites like dnsdumpster.com and crt.sh. That screenshot that I was showing was the crt.sh site with the Let's Encrypt certificates, things of that nature that will show you when they were issued, when they were not, things of that nature. It's a really good tool that we tend to use a lot of time. And um, like I said before, at the very bottom there, at least schedule your review of your DNS records for once a year. But however, we do recommend every 3 months.
All right. Very good. So, barricadecyber.com, if anyone wants to speak with you further or, I don't know, try and quiz you to make sure you know the 201 and 301 stuff for the people that think this was too rudimentary for them. Um, Feel free to
Um,
check out barricadecyber.com and then you can reach out to Eric and learn more about an engagement with him there.
Absolutely. Like I said, we welcome the further conversations. Definitely dive in more deeply, on those certain topics, um,
Mm-hmm.
and really start educating. Because, like I said, this is part of the outreach that we're trying to do. We're trying to educate businesses. So I'm really glad to see, in all honesty, though they maybe turn a troll, but if these are folks that are actually seeing this as 101 rudimentary stuff, really hats off to them. When you look at a global thing, U.S. is getting hit with more ransomware and more cybersecurity threats than most of the the other entities in the world, right? So
Hmm.
um, you always hear about the truck slammer IT folks. So while they may be offended and want to go watch TikTok, I'm kind of glad that we had at least one or two people kind of showing that. Gives me hope for the industry, really.
Yeah, we'll never have they'll never get hacked or anything, which is great. We don't have to learn about them on MSP channel news websites. So
That would be a good hope. That'd be a good day.
so all right. Well, thank you, Eric. This was a nice, short, and easy one. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And yeah, you all have yourselves a great day. And we'll see you at the next episode.